All righty, congratulations. You've made it to the last module of the course. And we're going to talk about in the last module of the course is your number one job as investor. And so the ideas that came from this video are generally still from the book in the last video, What I Learned Losing $1 Million in the Stock Market. But this is so important to understand what your number one job as an investor is. So let's get into it. This is back from Moynihan on what I learned losing $1 million. But at the end of the day, to not be betting, to not be gambling, you have to have a plan. Participating to be right is betting. Betting for excitement is gambling. In order to be investing, by definition, you have to have a plan. It's not about being right, and it's not about excitement. So you need to have a decision-making criteria and a decision-making process. So here it is. And I'll attach a link with a handout where you guys can write out your own. But you want to decide what type of participant you're going to be. You want to select a method of analysis, develop rules, establish controls, formulate a plan, measure if the plan is working, adjust and tweak, rinse and repeat. So we're going to get into this at the end as well. We're going to get into some mindset things. This is stuff I wish people would have told me in the beginning. But if your estimate of your self-worth rises and falls with your successes, failures, wins, and losses, profitable and unprofitable business transactions, then your self-concept will be in a constant state of crisis. This was so hard for me to learn in the beginning. But what I was calling failing was actually learning. It's like I would hope for an ideal result. I didn't know how to get there. I wouldn't get it. And I would blame it on myself. I would take internal losses. I would catastrophize. I would make a bunch of mental errors. And then my self-concept was always in crisis because my self-esteem was related to, hey, am I a good investor or not? And so it took a long time for me to break that. So if you tie your self-worth to the vicissitudes or factors beyond your control, you will primarily be concerned with protecting your ego rather than trying to determine an appropriate course of action. Now, the military helped me with this because it did get us to the point where we could let go of our ego and try to make the best decision at the given time. But the same thing has to go to investing. It's not about an internal loss. It's not about proving you're smart. It's about making the best investment decision you have with a limited amount of time, a limited amount of knowledge. And so this is just, I wish people would have told me this in the beginning. And so a person's self-image should not be dependent on a particular successes or failures since they're not necessarily in a person's direct volitional control, nor is it in his or her exclusive control. And so what does that mean? It means like what we talked about in the last video is investors manage the risk that's inherent in investing. Soldiers, leaders in the military, they manage the inherent risk that exists with combat. And so that is your job. And you have to accept not everything is in your control. So what do? You limit your risk of ruin. And so you try to operate with a known loss, like we talked about in the anti-fragile video. Try to operate with a known loss and unlimited upside. That's all you invest in. 4 pillars, known loss, unlimited upside. So if a person judges himself by the criterion that entail factors outside of their volitional control, the result is unavoidably a precarious self-esteem that is in chronic jeopardy. And I know this is an investing book, but this is what Brendan Moynihan is talking about, is because he sees it everywhere investing. People make the wrong, non-objective decisions because they don't have a plan, they don't have a criteria, and they're flying by the seat of their pants. So your self-image should not be a function of what you have accomplished, but how you've going about it. So can you pride yourself on, hey, I set a buying criteria and I followed it to the best of my ability and I learned and I adjusted it and I continued to tweak it? Yes, that is being a responsible investor. That's being a good steward of your resources. And your self-image can be a function of doing that because that's all inside your control. So Moynihan recommends you judge yourself to the degree by which you objectively define the parameters, the conditions that would constitute an opportunity, and how well you adhere to them. Now, my job in the teaching and the training in this program is to speed you along on defining the parameters and conditions that would constitute an opportunity. I take a lot of pride in doing that, and I really enjoy it. So in other words, pat yourself on the back or kick yourself in the backside, depending on whether you developed a plan, formed an analysis, and implemented the plan via the rules, and then follow the rules. At the end of the day, you're in this education program to develop the plan, to learn what you need to do to develop the plan. And then, so Brendan Moynihan gets to the point. Your number one job of an investor is to clearly articulate, develop, improve, and act on your decision-making criteria. It's the number one job. And honestly, it's the only thing you can do as a passive investor. You're not going to swing the hammers. Not like you swinging the hammers would make it any better of a deal or not. But that's your number one job of investment. I know it took 15 or 16 videos to get to this point, but this is where people new to the game really struggle. They think their job should be flying into town, walking the house. It's developing and investing criteria. How many bet? And I'm going to take you what I mean in each line item through. And so you want to take the emotion out of your decision-making process. So I generally, when I show this to people, I'm going to ask permission to play Jordan Peterson for 5 minutes. But this helped me a lot when deployments. Whenever I had something, a mission or something I was terrified of, I just had to remember this line from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's, a warrior is not concerned with the results of the battle, only his willingness to fight. So what did that mean? Well, it meant I got to make sure all my equipment's together. I got to make sure my soldiers' stuff is ready. I got to make sure I've done everything in the planning process so that I could have a successful mission. I couldn't control the results of the fight. All I can control is how I got ready for it. It's the same thing with investing. One of my favorite saints is Saint Ignatian. So I'm going to give you guys a military idea to relate this to and a spiritual idea to relate this to. But Saint Ignatius, he was great at indifference. So Ignatian indifference means being detached enough from things, people, or experiences to be able to take them up or to leave them aside, depending on whether they help us praise, reverence, or serve God. So if you want to be a saint, your plan is, hey, my ultimate goal is to praise, reverence, and serve God. Does this decision I'm about to make get me closer or farther from that? And it's just based off that decision. Now, kind of take back from the religious realm, it's going to be the same thing with investing. This decision, follow my buying criteria, and does it get me closer to my ultimate goal? That's why when you guys first come in the program, we do a target setting call, because I don't know how to help you. You don't know how to help yourself unless you know what you want. So investing in difference, then I came up with, after the Bhagavad Gita and the Saint Ignatius quote, I'm like, wait, I'm going to call this investing in difference. So investing in difference means being detached enough from expectations, results, or experiences to be able to either take up the idea or to leave the idea aside, depending on whether they help you serve your highest end. And so even your goal for investing, if it doesn't serve your overall purpose, you're walking on the wrong map. You're walking with the wrong map. It doesn't really matter. So determine your highest end, determine how investing serves that, and then develop a plan and a buying criteria to get after it. So decide what type of participant you're going to be. What that means in this program is, are you going to buy flip keys, turn keys? Are you going to flip? What are you going to do? You got to decide what type of participant you want to be. Select a method of analysis. I offer the pro forma that shows you guys your 10-year results. Plenty of people take that base I give them and they tweak it and they figure it out. And so you guys will also get access to this so you can write it down yourself. I'll give you guys a link in the circle so that you guys can develop rules. What is it going to take what do you need to see in order that you will buy the house? What type do you want to be, an A, B, or C class asset? What type of tier of scope do you want to use? Establish controls. Say, I won't invest in this city. I will invest in this city. Different controls for location, asset type, rehab type. Then formulate a plan. Where are you going to get the cash? Are you going to get it from private money? Are you going to raise money yourself? You're going to get a line of credit on assets you already have. Formulate a plan. Then measure if the plan is working. I recommend checking it quarterly to say, hey, am I getting closer to where I wanted to be? Then adjust and tweak and continue to rinse and repeat. This is a constant cycle. Here's a blank buying criteria that you guys will be able to fill out yourself with your general rule, the average numbers you're looking for a house, your disqualifying property features, desired type and neighborhood grades, zip codes that you want to buy in, and no-goes. Like, for example, this is what I send to people about what I want to buy. Generally, this is a little old. I would call this a 0.8% rule. I wanted between 60 and 110. Average rehab 30 to 55, ARVs ranging from 100 to 200K, but not limited. This was my buying criteria probably from about 18 months ago. Single family homes, 3-bed, 1 bath. Like, I don't look at multifamilies right now. Most, if not all, mechanical systems are good, but I'm able to, the great thing about these buying criteria is then you could send it to people who are looking to sell you houses, but this allows you to operate with blinders on. Then adjust and tweak. And so we did this in the military, but it was after every mission, we did what we call an after action review. You'll also have a link so you can fill out your own after action review. But, after a year of investing, you ask yourself, or one deal, one flip, one Berkey when it's over, what was the desired end state? What were you trying to achieve? Were you successful in achieving it? What went well? Start with your successes first. What went wrong? You need to articulate what went wrong so you know how to get better. Think about how well did you plan? What problems did you miss? And you can add that to your planning and your buying criteria. And then what changes to the buying criteria do you recommend? Like I do this all the time. This is how you get better as an investor. And then measure if your plan's working. Look at your books every 90 days to a year and reassess and reevaluate. So you might be thinking, Jimmy, so what? Well, here's the bottom line. For members of Ranger Real Estate, you want to use the first 20 houses not to get wealthy or financially free, but develop your decision-making process. If you get to the point where you buy 10 houses, you're going to be wealthy. It's inevitable. If you get to 20, it's almost impossible not to get wealthy. But what's most important is how are you developing as an investor and how well are you adhering to your plan? So there is no better training program than this to buy 20 houses, develop a buying criteria, and develop a plan and make sure that you are sticking to your plan and growing that way, like I said earlier in the video. So now in the beginning, adverse events can feel very painful. It's because people are internalizing loss, and every negative thing is looked at as a loss. And so if a projected rates of return don't match the actual, a psychological loss will occur, but it's not real. So if you thought something was going to appraise at 200 and it appraises at 90, people are like, I lost 10,000, or sorry, 190. People are like, I lost $10,000. I'm like, no, you didn't. It's just, hey, what can we do better in the buying part? How could we do a better ARV? Maybe the appraiser just had a bad day that day, but you didn't lose anything because you never had it. Now you have an asset, and before you didn't have an asset. So it's just never compare things to the ideal. And so I've been through these. I know this personally. I have felt this pain, and this is how I had to get myself over it. And once again, like we talked about in the last video and this video, don't allow your ego to internalize adverse events. This is how your ego gets involved in the position. You begin to take the market personally, which takes the loss from being objective to being a subjective loss. And it's no longer a loss of money, but a personal loss. You have to avoid this. And this is from Moynihan again. It's as if profits and losses were a reflection of their intelligence or self-worth. If they take the loss, it will make them feel stupid or wrong. They confuse net worth with self-worth. And I know I'm talking a little bit like a self-esteem movement person, but this is true. Do not confuse your net worth with your self-worth. And then remember, building wealth is a process. You just continue to reiterate your buying criteria, continue to learn and improve the plan. And building wealth is the ultimate hero's journey. So what I love about people being in this program, they hear the call to adventure, they start moving, they start growing, they cross the threshold, they go through the road of trials, they enter the abyss and they keep going and they learn and they return with the boon. And before they know it, they've grown a big rental portfolio and they're wealthy and they've learned all the lessons and have all the stories that go along with it. And I feel a privileged position to be people's guide in that journey. And I love doing it. And thank you for hanging out with me on these videos. And I will talk to you later.